Today, I'm sitting down with someone I've admired. Welcome to KneeToKnee, where we explore the science and stories behind human connections. I'm your host, Mark Merritt. Today, we sit down with someone that I've admired for years, actor and best-selling author Scott Christopher. You may know Scott from his roles on NCIS, Modern Family, and The Best 2 Years, as well as numerous other film and television projects. But what you might not know is that Scott is also a leading expert on workplace levity and the power of humor in building stronger teams. His book, The Levity Effect, contains over 146 research-based strategies for bringing more lightness into your work and life. But this conversation goes beyond, way beyond workplace tips. Scott shares a deeply personal story from his childhood and how one man's decision to show compassion instead of condemnation completely changed the trajectory of his life. It's a powerful reminder that how we treat others in their worst moments can define who they become. We also dive into improv wisdom, the truth about yes and rules, and why sometimes breaking those rules to the best. We also dive into improv wisdom, the truth about yes and rules, and why sometimes breaking those rules leads to the best creativity. Plus, Scott leaves us with a challenge that you can do right now, today, that will instantly strengthen your most important relationships. This conversation is about forgiveness, gratitude, the specific ways we can show people that they matter. So grab your headphones, let's get comfortable, and we'll go. This conversation is about forgiveness, gratitude, and the specific ways that we can show people they matter. So grab your headphones, get comfortable, and let's get knee to knee with Scott Christopher. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Knee to Knee. And today, where I'm actually, and I know I say this almost every time we have an episode, I'm super excited about who we have, right? But today I really am. We have an actor and best-selling author, Scott Christopher, with us. I became Scott, I'll be honest with you, I became a fan of yours back in the 2 more years
Right.
or
1920s.
the 20s, something like that. Yeah, it was way, way back in the day.
Oh, the best 2 years. Is that
The
what you're
best
saying?
2
The
years.
best
When
2
I
years?
first saw that, I went, okay, this guy's cool, right? Because I mean that was a fun movie. Just saying. That's my opinion, right?
Appreciate it. No, that's great.
And so I became a fan of Scott's way back then, and then found out several years later, obviously a few years later, that he had written a book called The Levity Effect, and we'll talk a little bit about some of that. He's got other books as well, but that one really jumped out at me. He's actually been on, did I get it right in my research, Scott, that you've actually been on NCIS as well?
Yes, I've been on NCIS, the original series, and then I was on a couple of episodes of NCIS Los Angeles with Chris O'Donnell. Yeah. And Modern Family and Criminal Minds and a bunch of Hallmark Christmas movies and some Lifetime not so Christmas movies. And
do they make those?
There. What's that?
Do they make not so Christmas movies on Lifetime?
Well, Lifetime, can you imagine? And in fact, the movies that I'm in aren't terribly, but they're not Hallmark either.
Yeah. Well, and then you're also well known in the LDS community, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because you've done quite a bit in that genre of film as well.
Yeah, I've done a few things either specifically for the church or what they call church adjacent, projects that the church isn't funding or producing necessarily, but they kind of go, yeah, we like this church history stuff and documentaries and things like that.
Yeah, you did a documentary where you were going, and I don't remember the name of it, but you were in Spain, and I mean you traveled all over the world.
Yeah, that's called.
And I watched all of those and was like, okay, this is some really cool stuff. So
yes, if anyone is watching or listening to this who has $1 million, we have 10 more episodes that we would like to produce. They just ran out of money, basically, because it's all just kind of done labor of love style.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wanted to do a lot more.
Well, welcome, Scott. Welcome. Yeah, Scott, I so appreciate you being here. right? This is
Pleasure.
thank you for taking time out this morning to spend some time with us. And so often what we do on the podcast is we love to be able to share stories and different things like that, and how connections have a direct impact on our overall health, and whether it's our own physical or spiritual, mental, emotional, but even sometimes that health within the community. And the one thing I loved about your book, The Levity Effect, is that it was so research based, that you told a bunch of great stories. And I actually, just the other day, I sent a copy of that Audible link over to a guy that I work with, saying, hey, he's got like 140 some odd really fun ideas. Let's try this on the teams next year.
Good call. Yeah, it was like 146, 148. I can't remember.
It was a bunch. And what really surprised me, to be honest with you, read them all. Number 1, number 2.
I think I did read the audiobook, didn't I?
You did. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
it was you. Yeah. So
A couple hours of my day.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it was worth it.
I'm sure it was a lot of fun to listen to. So tell me real quick, when you take a look at one of the things that you've always been known in the acting world and things like that is improv, right? When it comes to, one of the things that with my research, and I look at it, says, what does saying yes and do instead of yes but?
Yeah, that's a good, it's interesting. Improv for me is far less structured than the yes and construct. So the yes and is, for those that don't know, is kind of the theory that improv artists work off of, which is you just throw at me whatever you want. And the rule is you cannot disagree, or you cannot go against it during the flow of improv. I personally have only done, quote, improv, like in an improv setting, maybe 2 or 3 times. And it was as a guest where they're like, hey, Scott Christopher's here. Come on up and join us in improv. And I'll tell you.
Oh, that's got to be a little bit of a nerve-wracking for you.
Well, it is. But for me, it's because I kind of throw yes and out the window. Like, for me, real improv to me is anywhere I want to go. Well, don't tell me I'll say no. And so most of the purists out there don't really like my style because it doesn't follow the rules. I'm known as an improv guy mainly because during shooting of films or other things, I can improv and ad-lib material on the spot that actually makes things better or improves them. And so for me, I love that. I love the concept of yes and, because as sort of a levity or lighten up connoisseur a little bit, I believe that stepping outside of the rule construct is where you sometimes find your best material, and it really allows someone to kind of express their creativity the way they want to, rather than by the rules of yes and. And I know that wasn't your question. Your question had to do with yes, but, and I think that's probably the way I look at it, is more.
No, it was great. Yeah. Cause I mean, really, when you get down to it, I want your lens of that. Right. And so, and you're right. Improv, to me, there's not a whole lot of rules to it, but I've never done anything formal. Right.
Right.
In the real business world, we call it winging it.
Mickey Mousing. Yeah. Just figure it out. And it really does, having, and I guess in a business aspect or from that context, being limited to yes and in one way is positive, because you're saying I accept whatever is thrown at me and I will add to it, or I will change it up on the fly or whatever. So in that way, the yes and concept really does have applicability. But even for me personally in business, I'll still go, yeah, I don't like what you're bringing me. So I'm going to absolutely stop you there and say no. And no, I don't like where this is going. I see where it's headed and I don't like it. I think it's funnier / better for us if we do it this way. That's my and, so.
I totally understand that. A couple of weeks ago, I started listening to The Levity Effect again. And really, because I was focusing on, I gave a keynote a week and a half ago. Nice. And I thought, oh, okay. It was on empathy. And like, okay, empathy is such a heavy topic. How can I make this with a little bit more levity? And so I listened to it and I thought, okay, I grabbed an idea here and there and I kind of put it all together. And you talk about winging it. It was a full on wing it. I got up there and none of the technology worked. So in a lot of my presentation had that technology back end that just kind of helps support it. And I'm looking at the room going, all right, we're just moving forward. Let's just go. It's all you can do. Let's just wing this thing. I think I was 20 minutes into it before they got the technology up and running. Like, okay.
But
all right, but
the beauty part of something like that, especially with the theme of empathy, is it's almost an object lesson. The audience
it really was.
Oh, this poor guy. Oh dear. And then you could go, that whole last 20 minutes, that was all about my topic, which is empathy.
I wish I would have thought of that at that moment, Scott. This has all been part of the exercise. Do you feel it?
Exactly. Are you more empathic or are you more apathetic, empathetic, whatever it is? Yeah.
Yeah. No, man. After the fact, you think of really cool things, and I'm along those lines. Usually I'm off the cuff, but that's when I wish I would have thought of then as soon as they got the technology up.
But that happens to me a lot too.
Right.
I'd say 1 or 2 times out of 10, it doesn't read my machine, or something blinks and goes off, or the sound isn't working when I play a video. And that's the beauty of kind of preaching levity in that sense, which is, oh, lighten up. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We'll just roll with the punches and go with it.
Right.
That's the theme anyway, is things break down and you got to just smile through it and we'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like you to kind of go back into the recesses of your history and your mind. And I would love for you to share a story or an example, an anecdote, whatever we want to call it, that really was kind of a changing moment for you when it came to, one of those aha moments, right? I'd love to hear when it comes to building connections, whether it's with levity or, wherever it is.
Yeah.
What was a changing moment for you?
I think for me, there were a couple, but one that always comes to mind is and it's usually in your formative years. When I was a young teenager, I was kind of a criminal. I stole things. Me and my friends, we didn't have any money. We were kind of raised in a poor area. We were all kind of poor. And I remember we broke into some homes in the neighborhood and stole things. And luckily, we finally got caught. And I was maybe 11 or 12 was all. And
wow.
We had stolen from our local ecclesiastical leader, our bishop, from his kids. They'd saved their money. They worked so hard, and we went right in and took it, And I just remember when they caught us and we went through this whole situation with the police, and all the neighborhood parents all heard our stories. We had to confess. It was just so humiliating and so kind of life-changing. And I felt so nervous and scared around especially this man, for the rest of my, the following months. And Christmas came along, and I remember I was raised by a divorced mom, and we were poor, but she was able to get me a tape recorder, because that's all I wanted was a tape recorder.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to tape and do little scenes and be a little actor. And it broke. It was pretty cheap, and it broke, and I was so heartbroken. It was only 2 days after Christmas, and maybe only 2 months after this whole stealing thing. And she said, "Why don't you go ask Bishop Fielding if he'll fix it for you? Because he's got a little shop in his basement, and he's a fix-it man." And I said, "No way. Oh, no. My gosh, I can't face this man. He's big, he's strong. I stole from him. It's horrible." And anyway, long story short, she took me over. I went downstairs, just sheepish and scared, into his little workshop, and he spun around on his stool and took that thing. "Let's just see if we can fix that for you there, Scott." And he put on those big magnifying,
Yeah.
they put on to look at components, and he soldered things. And then he turned around and asked me, "How's my life? How's school? How's business?" Whatever. 12. Never once mentioned.
He had moved on.
Completely he fixed it. He said, "Good as new. Merry Christmas." Was, kind of growing up without a father too, having that moment with a father that I looked up to, someone else's father, but it really kind of showed me, it started to open my cold little heart about just service, kindness, compassion, very basic Christian principles that I'd been raised with, but had sort of eschewed. And that made a big impact.
And to have that at such a young age, right? To have that eye-opening experience, and not waiting till later when habits and the way we're living is already hardcore established or ingrained in our minds. You were fortunate to have that really early.
It was one thing to promise to never do it again, because I was afraid I would go to jail the next time, even though they did put us in a holding cell for one night to scare us. It's quite another to be motivated and moved by compassion and love and respect. And to have that lesson at such a young age really opened my eyes to, sort of the whole Og Mandino, Dale Carnegie, Stephen Covey, just sort of corporate packaged Christianity, if you will, not to besmirch their names or legacies, but I mean,
Right.
they weren't wrong. Jesus works in every setting,
Yes. Couldn't agree with you more there. Couldn't agree with you more there. So, well, that obviously your mind starts spinning about all the different things. So, but one thing that I learned recently, and I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were saying, if anyone ever tells you a story, we all have that natural tendency to want to jump in and go, okay, let me tell you what I'm thinking of. But the advice that I was given was a little bit different when this is the part of that making those deep connections advice. So I'm going to try and exercise that advice. The advice was to ask 2 follow-up questions that are really about the story. And because when we do that, then we're actually trying to make that connection with that person that we're understanding before we jump in and go, yeah, but me.
Love that.
And so,
yes, not easy to do.
no, that's not easy to do. And that requires us to actually be focused and listening, right? You can't ask follow-up questions if you're thinking about your next story. So let me ask a question.
Yeah, hit me.
So you had that experience sounds like with a really, really good man. So you had that experience with him. How were things after that around him with you and him? Did you notice a shift in you?
Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, I don't have the luxury of that strong of memories. It was 46 years ago.
A day or two ago.
But I mean, yeah, absolutely. The ice is broken, and he became, I went to his wife's funeral, and I went to his funeral, as I recall. Just loved that man dearly. He was a saint.
And it took a lot of courage, I think, number one, for you to go, even though your mom kind of maybe have drug you over there, but your mom sounded like she was or is an exceptionally wise individual because she was like, come on, we're going over. We're going to help break that ice. Was that something that she normally single mom, that's a rough world to be in.
Yes.
But it sounds like that was her modus operandi or whatever we want to say.
Sure. Anyone who was raised in a single parent home, especially raised by a mother, knows that the old saying, I'm trying to be both a mother and a father to you. And, they have to do, and Richard Pryor had a really funny but awful response to that. No, maybe it was George Carlin. I won't say it. But anyway, she was very hungry and determined to see her kids raised right and to make good choices and to pay whatever penalty they need to pay for whatever wrongs they've done and to contribute to society and all of those things. She was the one I was most afraid of, to be honest. And it was a fear not only, she was only a little 5'6" little woman. At the time, I was shorter than her. It was the fear of her broom or her hand or her belt. We spanked people back then. But also just fear of losing her respect and trust because I adored her. She was my mother. And that was certainly not out of her typical person, not out of character for her to march me over. It wasn't like this. And it was encouraging strongly, I will drive you. And she knew how much that thing meant to me. Like I had to weigh it and I went, you know what? Even at the cost of embarrassment or pain, I really want this thing fixed and we have no money to fix it. And Radio Shack taking it back. There's a corporate slogan they could use. Radio Shack won't take it back. Just in case they're watching.
In case they're wondering, what's our new slogan?
No, these were the purveyors of Tandy and Realistic.
Yes.
Those were their two big electronics brands. And as you know, if any of you guys watching or listening, you'll probably go, I've never heard of either of those. That's why.
Exactly. And if you're old enough, if you have heard of them, you're on the older side.
Right. Yeah, you're antiquing regularly.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. They're almost as good as trying to go find an old Atari. No, kidding. They're not.
Well, you can really score with a good old Atari. I'll tell you.
You can. Yeah. So, well, Scott, like we like to do, and we love to ask we're kind of getting close to the end. I kind of want to begin wrapping things up so that you can continue on with your day and with the boys. The question that I would ask is based off of our conversation today, what is the one thing that you could offer our listeners that they could do today that will make a difference for them?
I mean, the thing that I usually will offer up to anybody, which will make a difference immediately. I talk a lot about latitude, attitude, and gratitude when I talk about levity and lightening up. And I won't go into those, but the third one is gratitude. And while it may take time for you to develop your latitude, meaning giving people room to grow and letting them learn by mistakes and letting them laugh and have a good time at work or other places, or attitude, it's going to take a while for you to change your own attitude. Gratitude is something that we all intuitively understand and can do right now. And so one thing that will change not only how you feel, but also the connection that you could make with someone right now. And this used to be a handwritten challenge, but in today's digital world, it's just as easy to do, if not easier, is think of someone that you've been a little remiss in thanking. Maybe it's just ongoing activities that you take for granted because they're so close to you. They're a family member or a dear friend. Or maybe it was a single instance yesterday or 2 or 3 days ago or last week someone did at school, at church, wherever you may be, where you thought, I need to say thanks for that. Grab your phone, write out a text right now that thanks them. But here's the key. Be specific. Use as much specificity in your verbiage as you can. Tell them specifically what they did. Tell a story. And even if you click the little microphone button and you just do a voice recording, thank you, that way you're just talking it. But tell them, you remember last week when I was out doing XYZ and you came along and you did da-da-da-da-da. Retell the story even though they know they were there. And then drench it with sincere gratitude. Don't go over the top and don't make it phony, but just how you really feel. That can be done in 3 sentences or 30. If it's a good one, it won't matter to them how long that message is. In fact, the longer the better, because it's just thanking them. Sincere appreciation, either for regular rote routine things or for single instances or ongoing long-term things. That will strengthen your connection right away.
Wow.
And you can do it today. You should do it right now. When you turn off this podcast, think of the person, type it out, send it.
Yeah. When you're saying this, I'm sitting here going, all right, man, I got a list.
Right? We all do.
Yeah. So Scott, thank you so much for taking a few minutes and coming on with us today. And especially for your one thing, we are, as we get this episode up, also what I do is I'm actually building a playlist of just today's one thing. So we're going to take that little clip and we're going to put it into the playlist, and that will go out as shorts and things like that, just to kind of help people, just for that quick pick me up. And so everyone, thank you for joining in and being with us for a few minutes this morning. I'm going to put in the show notes links to your books, the books that I've got that I have down. And if there's something else, please tell me, Scott, but I've got The Levity Effect, People, and The 7 Ups of Happiness.
Those are the books, but honestly, I mean, I don't even know if half of them are still in print anywhere. The main thing is to go to scottchristopher.net. Or levityeffect.com.
Okay. Yeah. We'll put those in the notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Scott. And thank you everyone for tuning in again and for another episode of Knee to Knee. And we will connect with you all again soon. Thanks.